So I picked up a copy of this book the other day, and even before it was released, there were the typical, rants and raves about how it's the worst thing ever, and Hasbro's ruined it for everybody, and it's the end of Dungeons and Dragons as we know it, and the role-playing game community is going to have to run outside and set itself on fire with napalm or whatever the latest argument was. Is any of that really true, right? Is anybody really going to stop playing the game just because somebody publishes a book? And then there's of course the oh, don't buy this, go buy a an indie book, and that's usually said by an indie creator who has a book they want you to buy. I get that, but instead of trying to tell me to buy this instead of yours instead of this, tell me why I should buy yours, and maybe I'll buy both. You never know. I buy a lot of indie stuff from both the RPG community and the writing community. It happens all the time. But this book, is it a $100 apology tour that they want us to pay for, or is it actual history, right? So let's take a look. There are two sections that I have some issues with. They are a total of 4 pages in a 500 plus page book. Now, what are those particular issues? Well, first off, Jason Tondro, who was the project lead for this, worked on the preface, and he has this whole thing up here in this first paragraph about some changes that were made from the Tolkien world over to this, so they didn't get sued. Okay, I get that, right? You don't want to get sued, especially when you're a small company like TSR was. But then he goes on, some languages in the first iteration of D&D presents a moral quandary. The documents reproduced in this book include many pages of charts and tables alongside lists of monster spells and magic items. But that game content also includes a virtual catalog of insensitive and derogatory language. And if he'd kind of left it at that, I probably wouldn't care. I'd be like, okay, some corporate lawyer asked him to put that, and he did. Then he goes on to say, whoops, wrong direction. He goes on, he said, words that are casually hurtful to anyone with a physical or mental disability or happens to be old, fat, non-conventionally attractive, indigenous, black, or a woman. Yeah. It goes on and on and on about different things and kind of just complains for a while. And part of my favorite one is, yeah, it's down here at here in the middle. The cultural appropriation of original D&D ranges from bewildering, like naming every sixth-level cleric a llama, to the staggering gods, demigods, and heroes not reprinted in this book. Includes game statistics for sacred figures revered by more than 1 billion people around the world, where players expected to fight Vishnu, one of the principal deities of Hinduism, kill him, and loot his +3 sword of demon slaying. It's a make-believe game. You can fight Thor. You can fight King Arthur. You can fight all kinds of things. It's make believe. It's not people really going out to fight Vishnu. Okay. I want people to understand that. And it kind of goes on and on and basically, goes on for about half a page with just this weird gobbledygook of crap. And I get it. Some corporate lawyer probably pushed that. Some corporate PR flack probably had their hand in it. They make a statement about women's lib. They make statements about slavery. And yes, slavery was in the original series, original books. I mean, there were some adventure modules about slavery, but the idea was to free the slaves. So I'm not quite sure where they're going with that. Other than some PR flack probably just was reading articles about the Satanic Panic and was like, okay, we got to fix this before we start that kind of stuff again. And I don't think they really looked big picture. I think they looked microcosm and saw what they wanted to see. Now, the foreword by John Peterson had this paragraph that really kind of bothers me. Um, Note that rules for fantastic medieval war games campaigns that make up the original D&D were created and sold to a wargame community that was almost exclusively white middle-class men. The rules compiled here offer little by way of roles for other players, nor indeed anyone who wouldn't easily identify with a pulp sword and sorcery hero. Especially before 1974, the rules made light of slavery, in addition to including other helpful content. To reiterate the disclaimer, Wizards of the Coast on legacy content, these depictions were wrong then and they are wrong today. The content is presented as it was originally created because to do otherwise would be the same as claiming these prejudices never existed. Again, had this last section, the depictions were wrong then, had that been it, I wouldn't say a word. I'm getting really tired of seeing this shit everywhere I turn. White middle-class men, and we're kind of being blamed for everything. In the 1980s, when I was playing this game originally, I was a teenager, right? Preteen at some points, and you had to go pull people into play. So the reason the game is as big as it is today is because those original people were pulling people in to go play. They weren't like, okay, you're right, you're wrong, let's do this, let's do that. And at those early tables that I was at, we never, ever, ever stopped anyone from playing whatever the hell they felt like playing. If you wanted to be a purple elf, a green elf, a brown elf, a black elf, a white elf, it didn't matter. Nobody cared. We weren't like saying, this is, you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. We're like, hey, I don't care if you're gay, straight, lesbian, LGBTQ plus, female, male, just play, right? We need more players. So we were dragging people off the streets and trying to get them to come in and look at this fantasy game. And now we're getting raked over the coals for being fans of it. And it's like, oh my God, you guys were terrible. Yeah, but if you were at the same tables most people were at, you didn't see this exclusionary stuff. Now, this paragraph, I kind of understand this little, the stuff in the quotation marks there, I kind of get from a corporate lawyer perspective, but the rest of this, I don't understand anymore. Now, that's 4 pages across a 550 plus page book. Okay. That's 4 whole pages. It's sort of 2 of those 4 pages are just annoying as shit. Um, but again, it's 500 plus pages. And there's been some concern about, well, the rest of the book is going to have a disclaimer and an exclamation or explanation at the bottom of every page. Overwhelmingly, except those 4 pages, what I have found in this book is stuff like this, exact reproductions of things that were written early on. And maybe a little note at the bottom that says Gygax sent this undated letter to Arneson with the first draft of Dungeons and Dragons. And this kind of stuff, I haven't found any of the sort of disturbing things we see up front um, that people were concerned about. So, 500 plus pages. It's got some great early stuff in it. I actually like the early stuff. Those 4 pages can largely be ignored. And I wanted to address this because as soon as I put this video out and I don't, somebody's going to say, yeah, well, what about Kyle Brink? Okay, now Kyle Brink made this dumbass statement we've all heard about where he basically said there's been mistakes made in years past where people assume that D&D players were all, white dudes in a basement, which I've actually never played in a basement, but okay, which has been a faulty assumption for a lot of years and gets more and more false every day. And so from my viewpoint, honestly, guys like me can't leave the hobby, can't leave soon enough for this hobby. If those 3 guys really hate this stuff and the origins of it as much as they seem to in those paragraphs, and it wasn't just forced in on them by corporate PR flacks or lawyers, fucking quit and find a new job. If you're so embarrassed by the history of the place where you earn your living, fucking quit and find a new job. If that's been forced on you by corporate lawyers and PR flacks and others, that would be kind of important for the fan base to know because I'm really getting tired of being slapped around for enjoying something. Now, you guys, this book is not for everybody. If you're into the history of this stuff, great. If you're not, that's fine too. But it's not $100 price tag apology tour. There's 2 pages that kind of pissed me off. 4 pages that were involved in it, but really it only existed across about 2 of them, and you can ignore those, and the rest of it's really good. So I am enjoying the history stuff. I'm enjoying seeing Arneson and Gygax's handwritten notes. I really do like that part. There's been some criticism that they could have talked to some playtesters from early on that are still alive. And yeah, you could have. I mean, Wizards of the Coast could have done that. But really, to me, the interesting bit is to see those original notes, to see those handwritten pages that were even before they had a typewriter. I wanted to see that stuff. And that stuff is really interesting to me. Could it be better? I don't know. I'm still only part of the way through it. There's always an improvement you can make on a book. But these 3 guys and this sort of attitude where, middle-aged white men are just evil is just getting old. And it's just kind of getting tired to the point where it's like, okay, what are you going to blame us for today, right? And then ask us to buy your shit. And if we don't buy it, oh, well, we're at fault. It's like, with some movies that have been coming out lately, it's like, well, fans are too stupid to understand. What? Why are you going to slap around your fan base and the people you want to have buy the stuff? That makes no sense. So if those 3 guys, again, if those 3 guys really dislike the history of this and they're so embarrassed by it, why do you work in the field? I've quit jobs that had things going on that I absolutely disagreed with. I've walked out the door. If that's the case and you really don't like it, where's your resignation letter? Everybody think about that when the next time these guys come up and we start to get upset. Why don't they just quit? Anyway, everybody have a good day.